a friend of mine taught me to fly in a little Piper Cub. And he was so enthusiastic about flying. I know that's why I wanted to learn. And the best teacher in the world is somebody who loves what he or she does and just loves it in front of you.
Under the covers.
Hello and welcome back to ELT Under the Covers Teaching Master Series. In this series we look at teachers, educators across media that have a unique, innovative, different kind of style to teaching, and we kind of analyze what it is about them that makes them so good at educating. And in this particular video we are going to be looking at one of my personal favorites, Mr. Rogers. But first, introduction. I'm Neil of Team Teacher.
Hello everybody, it's Professor Rich.
Who was Mr. Rogers? He was an American children's TV show host. His show, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, ran from 1968 till 2001 for 912 episodes. But was he just a TV show host? No, I think not. I think he was an educator, a teacher, possibly the first tube teacher, the teacher that you would see on TV before YouTube, before the idea of YouTube teachers. He was the originator of the idea of TV, of media being used for education, not just entertainment.
Back in the time when he started, you've got to imagine, you know, back in the 60s, that these TV shows were just kind of like pies in face and lots of kind of like wacky stuff that's going on. It's not really particularly educational. And
it's
then
a knockout
in,
or something.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. And he comes in and he's like, actually, no, we can use this. We can use this to teach.
So this is the show where there's a lot of repetition.
There is repetition, and what we will do is we will analyze an episode, well, clips from an episode, and I can kind of like break down, because it's almost like a lesson plan of how he does it. It's very interesting. But first, I kind of want to go a little bit deeper into his thoughts about using media to educate. And I was trying to think of the best way to do this, and I think the best way to do this is to have him tell you what he thinks about that. And that is because at one point, in 1969, he went in front of the Congress, you know, in front of the US government, petitioning to keep public broadcasting, to keep their version of like the BBC going.
This is a philosophical statement and would take about 10 minutes to read, so I'll not do that. One of the first things that a child learns in a healthy family is trust. And I trust what you have said, that you will read this. It's very important to me. I care deeply about children. My first children...
Will it make you happy if you read it?
That's the guy that decides.
I'd just like to talk about it, if it's all right.
Sir. Okay.
My first children's program was on WQED 15 years ago, and its budget was $30. Now, with the help of the Sears Roebuck Foundation and National Educational Television, as well as all of the affiliated stations, each station pays to show our program. It's a unique kind of funding in educational television. With this help, now our program has a budget of $6,000. It may sound like quite a difference, but $6,000 pays for less than 2 minutes of cartoons, 2 minutes of animated, what I sometimes say, bombardment. I'm very much concerned, as I know you are, about what's being delivered to our children in this country. And I've worked in the field of child development for 6 years now, trying to understand the inner needs of children. We deal with such things as the inner drama of childhood. We don't have to bop somebody over the head to make him to make drama on the screen. We deal with such things as getting a haircut, or the feelings about brothers and sisters, and the kind of anger that arises in simple family situations. And we speak to it constructively.
How long a program is it?
It's a half hour every day. Most channels schedule it in the noontime as well as in the evening. WETA here has scheduled it in the late afternoon.
Could we get a copy of this so that we can see it? Maybe not today, but I'd like to see the program.
I'd like very much for you
I'd like to see the program itself, or any one of them, you see.
We made 100 programs for EEN, the Eastern Educational Network, and then when the money ran out, people in Boston and Pittsburgh and Chicago all came to the fore and said, we've got to have more of this neighborhood expression of care. And this is what I give. I give an expression of care every day to each child to help him realize that he is unique. I end the program by saying, you've made this day a special day by just your being you. There's no person in the whole world like you, and I like you just the way you are. And I feel that if we in public television can only make it clear that feelings are mentionable and manageable, we will have done a great service for mental health. I think that it's much more dramatic that two men could be working out their feelings of anger. Much more dramatic than showing something of gunfire. I'm constantly concerned about what our children are seeing. And for 15 years I have tried in this country and Canada to present what I feel is a meaningful expression of care.
Do you narrate it?
I'm the host, yes. And I do all the puppets, and I write all the music, and I write all the scripts.
Well, I'm supposed to be a pretty tough guy, and this is the first time I've had goosebumps for the last 2 days.
Well, I'm grateful, not only for your goosebumps, but for your interest in our kind of communication. Could I tell you the words of one of the songs which I feel is very important?
Yes.
This has to do with that good feeling of control, which I feel that children need to know is there. And it starts out, what do you do with the mad that you feel? And that first line came straight from a child. I work with children, doing puppets in very personal communication with small groups. What do you do with the mad that you feel? When you feel so mad you could bite. When the whole wide world seems oh so wrong, and nothing you do seems very right. What do you do? Do you punch a bag? Do you pound some clay or some dough? Do you round up friends for a game of tag or see how fast you go? It's great to be able to stop when you've planned a thing that's wrong and be able to do something else instead and think this song. I can stop when I want to, can stop when I wish, can stop, stop, stop anytime. And what a good feeling to feel like this and know that the feeling is really mine. Know that there's something deep inside that helps us become what we can. For a girl can be someday a lady, and a boy can be someday a man.
I think it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful. Looks like you just earned the $20 million.
That's really interesting, actually. I think the psychological understanding that he has of children, and the kind of, does he have a background in psychology?
Yeah, we'll go into his background after the episode, but he doesn't have a background in psychology. He's actually an ordained minister, but he did attend graduate school of doing like classes in child development, and his mentor on the show, who he takes the scripts to and goes over it, was a psychologist named Margaret McFarland, that whose mentor was Erik Erikson, whose mentor, well, I think, was Piaget. So it was it's steeped in it, and you can tell
there's a legacy there, isn't there? So that's amazing, because I think that kind of teaching is very relevant today, and teaching people how to manage their emotions. I mean, he makes a very...
How would you even go about doing that? Yet he does it, and he did it really, really well.
He did, in a song.
In a song.
So it's he puts a song together, and he just seems to have a very deep understanding of how how children feel, how people feel, really. You know, people talk about the inner child, don't they? But, you know, especially how children feel. You know, I remember when you feel angry as a child, you know, it does feel like that. The whole world's wrong, and, you know, and all that kind of stuff. And this kind of resentment you have if the teacher tells you off or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
So being able to get into that, and then being able to say, right, this is how you deal with it. And by the way, dealing with it and being in control of your emotions it's something very empowering to have. That's amazing. You know, most people don't have that. And I don't think that a lot of people, beyond very early, like, kind of stuff you get from your parents, most of which is probably unintentional, I don't think most people get like any sort of deliberate teaching about how to manage that kind of thing. So education about emotional, like healthy emotion, dealing with difficult emotions and things like that. Yeah, really impressive. Really impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's, I really want to reiterate and stamp this home, is that, you know, most of the education that we think about is learn math, learn English, learn science. Yet the thing that you chose, especially with really young learners, young children, is how to manage your emotions. And you know, we don't even really teach that in schools. It's kind of like a byproduct, and it kind of speaks to how difficult it is to do that, to be able to help people manage and stuff, and to be able to do it in, you know, like that, the phrase, if it's mentionable, it's manageable. I mean, we use these sort of mnemonic devices when we're teaching English to help you remember that sort of stuff. Brilliant. Put it in a song. That's what we do when we teach English. We try to put all the structures in a song because it makes it memorable, and it helps with repetition. It's absolutely wonderful. And that testimony actually bleeds into the episode that we're going to watch. So I've cut the episode up because, you know, the episodes are 30 minutes long, but I wanted to I broke the episode down, and you can kind of see the clips, and you kind of see how he builds up this episode, and how I feel it is kind of like a lesson plan. So the episode that we're talking about is one of the many episodes related to dealing with strong feelings, especially being mad. So let's have a look at the first clip, if you don't mind.
Hey, neighbor. Glad we're together again. Yep. I've got something to show you here. This says nothing, but this says clap. Can you clap? Okay. And this says stomp. Can you stomp with your feet? Okay. Nothing. Now what's that? Clapping. Yeah, clap. Stomp. Nothing. Clap. Do it.
Yeah, okay, fine. Every episode always, I cut that bit out because of time, but every episode starts with the theme song, him coming on, he sings the same song every class, every episode. He takes off his jacket, he puts on a new jacket, he takes off his shoes, he says hello. And then the first part I always see as kind of, he's pre-teaching. He introduces something, and normally it's kind of like, what is this? You know, and he'll generally ask, do you know what this is? And there's always elements of trying to get them to interact and engage, and he will repeat what it is that's the key part of that kind of like pre-teaching section, what I thought. Mm. Do you have anything that you want to add to that from what you've seen?
So the interactivity is, it's great. I think it's still relevant in a contemporary way. I don't know how old that particular episode is. Is that one from the 80s or 90s or something?
Probably.
Right. I mean, there's still definitely contemporary relevance with that, isn't there? I mean, we've had a look at some tuba teachers, and arguably his pedagogy is superior to that. Well, it is superior to that. I mean, there's interactivity. I can imagine the kids clapping along with it. Mm-hmm. I don't know about, have you shown this to your son to see how he respond?
He's not old enough yet.
Right.
So probably wait a little bit longer.
Right.
But there's no rush to it. I will be introducing him to it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, the stomping, the clapping. I mean, you could see that, and from sort of following mentally while he was doing it, I think he's very much got the pauses and stuff well. Mm. He's got them right. It sort of surprises me actually that he wasn't a teacher.
Yeah. Right.
He's obviously had some interaction with kids. Maybe you said he was a minister, right, or something. So maybe it was in that way. He had some, I don't know. He did some lectures on Jesus to the kids or something. I don't know. But obviously he's got some understanding of, development and what people are capable of. And, clapping and stomping, they're sort of base level little kid things to do, aren't they?
Yeah, and it's a good graded level where there's nothing much more superfluous than just clap and stomp, and then the kids like, oh, I can do this, and then we start to go a little bit deeper. We start to get into the actual lesson, and that's where they kind of transition and go to explore more of what clapping and stomping means and go into the thrust of the episode. So maybe we should carry on and have a look.
Now, there's a group of very gifted performers who call themselves Stomp, and they use all kinds of things to make their rhythm music, brooms and cans and all sorts of things like that. Now, I thought you might like to meet them, so I asked if we could come to the place they're rehearsing today, and they said sure. So let's just go and meet the people of Stomp. Come along.
Notice the transition.
Here we are.
Hey, everybody, look who's here. Come on up, Fred.
Hey. Good to see you.
How's it going?
Great.
It's good to see you
Looks
again.
like it's going well with you. Hi,
See you.
Matt. How are you?
Good.
Would
you like to meet everybody?
I sure would.
All right.
Thanks.
Hi. This is Hillel.
Hello, hello. Glad to meet you.
All right. Tony.
Hi, Tony.
Kim Marie.
Hello, Kim Marie.
Michael.
Hi, Michael.
How are you?
Glad to be
You know, I'm
here.
Matthew, and you know Amina.
Of course.
This is David.
Hello, David. How you doing?
And Mike.
Nice to meet you. Good to meet you. What was that you were doing when I came in?
It's from a piece we call Hands and Feet.
Well, I saw a lot of hands, but I didn't see much of the feet.
Well, we add in the feet later. Would you like to see?
I would.
All right.
Yeah, thanks.
Ready? Great. 3, 4.
Nice.
Fantastic.
Boy, that's wonderful. You use your hands and your feet, and
We had that pre-teaching, the clap and the stomp, and you know that's kind of him engaging and interacting with the child. And then for me, this is you actually see the transition. He goes from his house and he shows all the transition from his house to there to make sure that the kids follow along. And then this is the application of the clapping and the stomping in the real world. This is the context of, this is not just in the neighborhood, this is outside in the world, and this is how it works in the world. So how they can apply clapping and stomping in the world, the wider world.
Yeah, so there's very much a kind of narrative guiding of where your thinking's going. So you start with, like you say, this kind of controlled practice, and then he's like taking you into the real world, giving you this visual of, okay, now we're going out here. Look, here's some adults actually doing clapping and stomping and whatever, and the way they're using it, talking about using your hands and feet to make music. He repeated that a few times about hands and feet.
Mm-hmm.
And I also quite like the way that he kind of came in, and all right, it was kind of cheesy and acted like, hi, Fred, or whatever. But then they had these introductions, and, you know, there was no rush. There was not like, you know, you can imagine in modern stuff, they'd be like, cut all that out, cut it out. You know, it's like, no. There's this kind of lingering shot where he says, hey, Chris, you know, nice to meet you. I'm Fred. Oh, you know, and that felt very authentic to me, actually, because that's like a real situation. If you did actually go in and meet a group of people, that's what you would do. Yeah. You know, hi, I'm Rich. Hi, I'm Rich. Hi, I'm Rich. You know, that is what people do. And for kids, I think, to see that kind of natural interaction, that's good. Yeah, you know, because they're going to pick up on that and go, exactly. Oh, that's what happens when you meet people.
Yeah, and it's kind of like these little authentic interactions, I think, are often more important than the actual thing that they're trying to show. Like you say, with modern TV shows, it's cut. If this was a modern show, say like MTV, or not like we have MTV anymore, but you know, whatever kids show now, it's just straight to stomp. You know, they just want to show stomp, and
right.
You miss out on the boring stuff, that introduction,
right,
which is what the kids will have to do if they go to that dance class. They will have to introduce themselves to all the new kids and interact and say hi, and it shows, you know, just being friendly and being nice. And I like as well, I think it's important to note, is the way that he's framed clapping and stomping. It is with music, and it is it seems to be a happy release. So I don't know if you see where this is going, but let's go on to the next clip, and you can see kind of where he builds from this. Transition again.
That was fun for me. Stomp.
Oh.
We can clap for the fine work they do.
Going back over it.
Now let's have some make-believe. Get the trolley here. Trolley. We've been pretending that Lady Elaine Fairchild got angry and turned Grandpere's tower upside down. She's even afraid she turned Mr. McFeely into a doll. Well, let's pretend that she does her best to make things right this time as the trolley goes into the neighborhood of make-believe.
Did your boomerang get you into trouble, Lady Lane?
It sure did. I've got to remember not to use it when I'm angry.
Just remember your play clay and your steel pen, Laney.
I'll try. You know, you're a really good friend, Betty.
Old friends are the best, Laney, I tell you. And when are you going to come and see us in Southwood?
Well, I've got to go sweep up right now. But when I'm finished, I'll come down for a visit.
Well, okay, bye then. I need to go see how Janie is.
Okay, Toots.
Well, okay then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Betty-O. Thank you.
All right, now, shall I boomerang us over to the tower?
Okay, I think maybe you need a little bit more context with that.
I don't know where this is going.
So, one part of the episode, they always do this. They have trolley, and trolley is a means to transition from the neighborhood or the real world into this make-believe world. So they're very separate. The make-believe world is people interact with these puppets and stuff like that, and often these puppets act out kind of like a scenario related to the core theme of the episode. So this one, it was quite a long one, so I had to cut it down. It was hard to get a good clip, but basically those two puppets, they were throwing boomerangs when they were angry, and they shouldn't. And normally they would include kind of, I think I missed it, but they included parts where they talked about how they could express their anger differently by clapping or stomping and stuff like that. So they have this make-believe word where they can kind of add a little bit more narrative or create a scenario where they're a little bit more pointed and more direct with the theme of the episode. So in make-believe, the puppets can make those mistakes, and then they look to resolve those mistakes. They have those big emotions, they look to resolve those big emotions.
I like the idea of the separate make-believe world. And especially keeping it very separate, because make-believe is a big thing for kids and some adults, in fact. But it tends to be a capacity that we lose a little bit as we become adults, unless you're going to become a novelist, for example. But kids do have a really great capacity for imagination. I remember when I was a kid, my imagination was vast. These days, it's not so much because you don't practice. But your ability to kind of visualize and go into another world is really, things can be very real. And then when kids see, films on TV and stuff, they, at certain points, they can struggle. They come to a thing where they don't know what the difference is between what the fake film and reality. And, you get kids kind of, I'm Batman or whatever. And this dog is Joker, right? And they hit the dog on the head with a stick or something. It's like they sort of see things and learn things and don't realize that difference. And at some point, it's very important that that difference comes into play. So I like the idea of using it because I think that make-believe and imagination is incredibly important. But also I really like the idea of keeping it very separate and saying, look, this is the make-believe world where things are different and it's not like real world.
Yeah, and also, I like the transition because he shows that it's very separate to go to these different places. But for me, the make-believe world is an area where they can basically role play and act out these scenarios that in a non-threatening way. So imagine if they were to do this in the real world and they had two men shouting, fighting, being really angry on screen. For kids, that might be quite scary. But, if it's just a puppet that's kind of like, oh, he's angry and he's throwing a boomerang around or something like that, then it's not so threatening. It's distant. It's make-believe, and it's kept separate. And it allows them to kind of process those kind of emotions. It's a genius way of doing it, and it allows them to go deeper into topics. And I think that it kind of, for adults, it works in a similar way. Like we don't have as many qualms with deeper, more I don't know, maybe deeper is just the word. Dealing with deeper emotions and issues when it's kind of animated. You know, like South Park gets away with a lot of things because I feel like it's animated, but they can do more socially with the commentary that they have, whereas you couldn't do that if it was actual, you know, in real life. And I kind of feel like it mirrors the same in Mr. Rogers.
Okay, yeah, because they're puppets.
I mean?
Yeah,
puppets. It's only a puppet.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think so. There's a lot going on, isn't there, with this show? It's been very carefully thought out.
Oh, it's very carefully thought out and planned. And we'll go into the last part, because the last part is what kind of ties it all together.
Okay.
So let's finish up with the last part, and then we'll kind of go deeper into Mr. Rogers' background and his thoughts on teaching.
Yes, we're so glad.
Lady Elaine says she'll try to do healthier things next time she's angry. It's so important to know that there are things you can do when you're angry.
Like
that
what?
Don't hurt you or anybody else. What do? Do you punch a bag? Do you pound some clay or some dough? Do you round up friends for a game of tag and see how fast you go? The more of those things you find, the more grown up you're getting to be. You know, as you do that, I hope you'll remember how very proud I am of you and how glad I am to be your neighbor. See you later, fish. It's such a good feeling to know you're alive. It's such a happy feeling. You're growing inside, and when you wake up, ready to say, I think I'll make a snappy new day. It's such a good feeling, a very good feeling, the feeling you know that I'll be back when the week is new, and I'll have more ideas for you, and you'll have things you'll want to talk about. I will too. We always have plenty to talk about, don't we? Plenty of things to think about and to do. Remember what that says? Remember what this one says? I'll be thinking about you and be back next time. Bye-bye.
That was the song that we heard before, wasn't it? That he was saying when he appeared before Congress. Well, it was part of it. Maybe it was a slightly different one.
He mixes it up. He adds it. Remember these? He does multiple episodes with narratives around feeling.
The sort of same the same theme overall running through. Yeah, it's really good. It's really good. I mean, I am impressed. Really, I think that there needs to be more programs like this.
Right. Not just for kids, for adults as well.
Yeah, well,
you know, but how you would? But I've known a lot of adults that will come back and watch this. You know, people that have grown up with Americans and Canadians that have watched this because it's gives them that warm feeling again. You know that they're being heard, because when he talks about and he sings that song of because he sings a song or a variation of that song at the end of every episode of how, you know, I like you and I like you just the way you are, and I appreciate you and be my neighbor. It's from the heart, and you know, people get choked up.
There's lots of messaging in there, very positive messaging. I like you the way you are. you know, the more in control you are, what a happy feeling it is to be alive. You know, there's lots of very positive messaging, especially from a mental health perspective.
Yeah. And, you know, when he's talking about ways to deal with those emotions, you know, like pounding dough, and then he says that message of, you know, the more of those feelings that you have, the more grown up that you are. So the way that he phrases it, and he actually has a language that he kind of used. It's called Freddish, and we'll kind of look at a little bit of that later. But it's very thought out, and everything that he says is deliberate, and there's subtlety as well to it as well, because like with that, he didn't mention that you can clap or stomp to release your emotions, but it's there. It's just lingering there.
Right.
And then the kids are like, maybe I could do that. And then if they think of it, he didn't mention it, they think of it, then it's discovery.
Personalized.
It's personalized. They own that thought.
That's right.
But it's been messaged all the way through. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
great,
like planting seeds.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to see more of that out there. But would you like to get a little bit more background on how he came to being like this? I think we can kind of look into his background with education and how that kind of informs the program, because it's quite interesting.
Mr. Rogers attended Pittsburgh Seminary to get a bachelor's in divinity and also become an ordained minister. But he also, at the same time, attended the University of Pittsburgh Graduate School of Child Development, all in the 1960s, which interestingly, at that time, that place, it was a hotbed for this new discipline of child development. Dr. Spock, the author of the famous Common Sense book of baby and child care, he taught there. And of course, Margaret McFarland, Fred's mentor, she was heavily influenced by Erik Erikson, who was also often a visiting professor. Fred was steeped in the latest of child education development theories. And here are some of his thoughts around that.
Well, I've had some wonderful instruction in my life. I've worked with some of the very best people who know children best, and I'm grateful for that. And I'm also grateful for the children that I've worked with. You know, I did the master's program in child development at the University of Pittsburgh. And under the supervision of Dr. Margaret McFarland, I've been able to work with children, and they have shared with me some of their inmost thoughts. And I've learned greatly from children. So consequently, I respect them greatly.
So much. And what about his background with education? So I think there's two parts to it. One is the religious. He was actually a very religious guy. He was going to be a minister, but when he talked to the church, they said, well, you know, maybe this is something that you could do that might help more people than just, you know, preaching in front of a church. Preaching on the TV might be better. And I don't. He never outright does that, but you know, he will do things like at the time of in America, there's lots of segregation between black and white people. You know, he was one of the people to kind of like his mailman was black, and he invited him to share a pool. And there's a whole religious story around that. I don't think many people know about, and you can read his book and you can learn about that. But there's lots of teaching, and the way that he presents there is a definite religious aspect to it. And then there's also the background with child development and psychology. It's just so serendipitous and fortuitous that he was at this university that had Margaret McFarland. This university is one of the pioneering child development centers just happened to be in Pittsburgh with him, and you know, like her guy, her mentor Eric Erickson would come and visit there, and Eric Erickson was huge in child development. He was influenced by Piaget. Dr. Spock, the guy that did basically the Bible for you know, raising a kid, that was all there. It was just
there's a lot of things coming together, although I feel like a lot of that legacy came together into the right person, because I feel like his personality is ideal really for what he's trying to do, because he has this very gentle, caring approach, and it comes across very well.
It's wonderful. And one of the things that I noticed, and this was very important with the episodes, he would, with each episode, he would consult with Margaret McFarland, and they would go over the script meticulously, because she had lots of insights into the child psychology and development of like what you have to explain if you're talking about something. So I think one of the examples that he gave was he wanted to talk about fire one episode, you know, like your fire safety, what to do when there's a fire. And she mentioned about how, well, if you talk about fire, you have to talk about wetting the bed. And he's like, wetting the bed? He's like, what's that got to do with fire? And apparently there's this whole thing that there's some sort of connection with us with childhood about fire being a representation of no control over your body or something, and it's all about body control or something. I can't remember, and I'm probably butchering it.
That's interesting.
One of his
I've never come across that before.
But you know, like she brings these insights to things that you wouldn't think about, and it's obviously so important.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember in the nursery school where I worked as I was doing my master's work in child development. There was a man who would come every week to sculpt in front of the kids. The director said, I don't want you to teach sculpting. I just want you to do what you do and love it in front of the children. During that year, clay was never used more imaginatively before or after than during that time that he came. So a great gift of any adult to a child, it seems to me, is to love what you do in front of the child.
It's just do what you love in front of kids, and they want to copy you and try it at themselves. That's really interesting. Yeah, I like that a lot. I think there's a lot to be said for that. And also that allows people to explore their own creativity, right? Rather than this kind of attitude of, this is the right way to do it. Pick up the clay and put it here, and this is how you make a good thing with the clay.
Yeah.
No, instead, you just pick up the clay and start doing stuff and enjoy it. And then the kids will be like, and they'll pick up the clay and start messing around with it, right? And if they want to know specifically how to do something, then they'll ask you. But in the meantime, they'll have a go and explore and figure things out themselves, which I think there's lots of benefits to be said for that. And also, we're not unnecessarily training the creativity out of the kids, which happens a lot, unfortunately. What was it? It's the Picasso quote, isn't it? All children are born artists, but to remain an artist when they grow up, that's the difficult part, because we teach them out of it.
Yeah, he goes back to that point a lot. If you go look for inspirational quotes from Mr. Rogers, or talking about teaching in his books, because he's got biographies and books on how to do the things that he does, he always goes back to loving something in front of the kids. And I think what it is that he's trying, he gets to the core of finding the way to get kids to love something, you have to love it yourself. So, you know, like we, as a teacher, well, I remember I'd have teachers at school, or I'd see other teachers, and they're trying to instill, like, they say, look, love this, love painting, or love history, or love math or physics or something like that. And you can't teach someone to love something. But his idea is you can show them that you love something, and maybe by you showing them, they will find that love as well, you know? So, you know, it's kind of like that flow state where you really enjoy it. You know, if they see you really enjoy it and you get into that flow state, then, you know, they will obviously want to come into that. And that could be applied across subjects. It could be applied to maths, science, not just art and language. You know, if you really enjoy doing math problems and the challenge that you have, then, you know, don't explain that. There's no point in explaining that. It's boring. Just do it. Do it and show it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's a good point.
But that was very important to have people read to me. And I remember how important it was to our boys. They'd always want to be read to. Especially Jay. And now he just devours books. I'm convinced that if a child is read to by a loved one early on, that child will somehow recreate that scene himself or herself by reading. And when you're an adult, you might not have that person right there, but you have the memory of that person right there as you're doing the reading. That's the most important help in helping children to learn to read, is to read to them with affection.
And it's same with reading. I think it bleeds into what he was talking about with reading as well.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it does. It does. Completely, it does. Read in front of the kids if you want them to read.
Yeah, and though I did like the idea of, well, with that is that he's linking positive emotions with the teaching, with the learning, with the parenting. So maybe the kids don't like reading. They will never get reading. But whenever they read a book, they think about that comfortable feeling that they had with their parents, their mom, their dad, whatever caregiver that they have. So it takes them back there, and it always reminds me of, you know, like I love going to the cinema because I always feel relaxed, and you know I just remember being relaxed, being a kid, and going to the cinema and doing that. So, you know, if I get a bit stressed, you know, I'll go to the cinema because it is kind of like a bit of a safe place for me.
Yeah,
so,
totally.
So
yeah.
I think this idea that reading he has is kind of not just teaching them to love reading, but creating a safe space for them as well.
Yeah.
A tether of nostalgia in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a lot of positive reinforcement in the way that he does things.
The next thing that I want to kind of dive into is these kind of, he didn't make these rules, but the kind of show kind of made these rules. They call them Freddish, and it's the purpose of language and how he constructs the language and how he uses it in the episodes, and it's very interesting. Let's have a look and we can see what you think.
Mr. Rogers, how to speak Freddish. State the idea you wish to express as clearly as possible and in terms preschoolers can understand. For example, it is dangerous to play in the street. Rephrase in a positive manner. For example, it is good to play where it is safe. Rephrase the idea, bearing in mind that preschoolers cannot yet make subtle distinctions and need to be redirected to authorities they trust. For example, ask your parents where it is safe to play. Rephrase your idea to eliminate all elements that could be considered prescriptive, directive, or instructive. For example, that'd mean getting rid of ask. Your parents will tell you where it is safe to play. Rephrase any element that suggests certainty. That'd be will. For example, your parents can tell you where it is safe to play. Rephrase your idea to eliminate any element that may not apply to all children. Not all children know their parents. For example, your favorite grown-ups can tell you where it is safe to play. Add a simple motivational idea that gives preschoolers a reason to follow your advice. For example, your favorite grown-ups can tell you where it is safe to play. It is good to listen to them. Rephrase your new statement without value judgments. Good represents a value judgment. For example, your favorite grown-ups can tell you where it is safe to play. It is important to try to listen to them. Rephrase your idea a final time, relating it to some phase of development a preschooler can understand. For example, your favorite grown-ups can tell you where it is safe to play. It is important to try to listen to them, and listening is an important part of growing up.
Yeah, it's very good. Yeah, it's you could actually see that in the clips that we watched earlier when he was saying about how the more things you have to control your emotions, the more you become an adult or whatever. And there was elements of that in this kind of rule set of how he's framing it for the kids. So there's really a great deal of thought in there. The flosser in me will say that it is important is also a value judgment, but maybe it's a bit more of a useful value judgment than it is good. Yeah, but I like all that stuff about your favorite adults, your favorite grown-ups can tell you, don't say will tell you because maybe they won't. Right? Yeah. The idea of moving the prescriptive thing, which is like do this, do that. Instead, it's like this can happen. They can help you with that.
Yeah.
So then it's like an invitation, then, isn't it?
Yeah, and it doesn't. Yeah. It's so well done and so well thought out. I didn't want to say it, but I'll just say it. It's like kind of like mind control in a way, but in a positive way, in that it's being considerate and being graded and age appropriate.
That's it. Yeah.
It's wonderful. I have learned a lot from watching Mr. Rogers, not just as an educator, but also as a person and I love how soft it is. Maybe it's because I'm getting older, but like especially being a guy, there's more emphasis on kind of like doing boy stuff when it's more that you kind of I feel like it would have helped me more growing up, to be told that there are different ways to deal with kind of like being mad, for example, rather than kind of like fighting a gun or stamping or doing something more aggressive. That there's other ways, and I think it speaks to kids in a very positive way. And
well, to be fair, he does mention kind of more kind of energetic ways as well, doesn't he? Because he said something about like punching clay or something.
Yeah.
So he does mention that as well. So I guess it's a more holistic, all-encompassing and balanced approach.
Yeah. And it's more and more what you see with psychology in parenting nowadays. It's always, I mean, what I try to do with my son is, you know, always respect his emotions and just say, you know, just when he's upset, you know, angry or sad, it's okay. It's okay to be really mad, to be mad at me, to be really sad. Whatever has happened, it's fine. It's okay. You know, like, I still love you. I'm still here for you. And it allows them to kind of help process those emotions. And
Right.
it's so necessary. And
Yeah.
it's just it's just so weird that in the 1960s that this would have been one of the major outlets for kids.
I mean, it seems to me like his stuff is a little bit beyond that, even because, you know, the modern thing of acceptance, accept your feelings. Well, that's fair enough, but he's actually telling you the next step of dealing with it.
Yeah.
You know, doing something about it, finding a way. You know, go and play tag and see how fast you can go. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
That's a great way of dealing with something that's difficult to deal with. So.
And I'd love to see
Yeah, I
this
think it's really
actually
good.
in public school. You know, episodes
Yeah.
just on dealing with feelings.
I feel like a lot of stuff for kids is just so on the nose compared to this, you know? It's so in your face, you know. Don't cross the street without your parents doing, you know, it's like, it's so like that. And then you have the way that he's doing it, which just is so much more relatable. But there's a great deal of thought going into it, isn't there? And I can see now why you were talking about like a lesson plan, because it obviously has been planned.
Yeah.
Carefully. So much so that he now has these maxims that he uses to construct his speech.
Yeah. And, you know, when I was teaching younger kids, I would try, you know, certain points, certain maxims that he had, or, you know, certain approaches, and make it relatable to them, whatever language point that I would talk about or I would have in that class. I would always be looking for something to make it appropriate to them. So it's not, as you say, you know, don't cross the road or cross the road with a parent. It's not prescriptive. It's like, well, giving them more agency, more reason, relating more reason to their stage, to whoever they are, so they understand more. It's not just being told what to do, that they know why. Yeah, it's super important. So, you know, can you give me some final thoughts on Mr. Rogers, kind of like as an educator, as just, you know, the overall?
Well, I've been really impressed, and you know my general thoughts about tuba teaching, tuba teachers. So yeah, I've been really impressed by it, and it has been very interesting to see him do what he does, and to see his deeper thoughts, and to see some of the theory behind the things that he does. I 100% think that this just seeing him and understanding why he does some of the things that he does is valuable to educators. Whether, I mean, yeah, he's a teacher. He is a teacher. You know, he might not have professionally been a teacher or have a teaching qualification, but he's a teacher, 100%. And there are very valuable lessons in the way that he does things for teachers, especially teachers of children. I don't think that I've ever integrated a lot of, I don't know if I've ever really integrated some healthy emotional management into one of my lessons. You know, we could write that off and say, well, you know, a language teacher, but at the end of the day, that doesn't really mean much, does it? Especially if you're teaching kids, you're just a teacher, really. And I think more and more language teachers are seeing themselves like that. We're not just teaching people the content of the subject. There's other elements to it.
Emotions is a big part of it as well. You know, and we've touched and talked about this before, and we will on, I'm sure, on future episodes. But for example, when we talk about role plays, we talk about role plays that it helps students that are shy be different people, so they can, you know, more freely do dialogues. That's emotional control. It's someone that's got anxiety about making a mistake, looking foolish in front of their class, and giving them an alternative, an out to be a different person that doesn't have to feel that anxiety. I know it's not out and out. We've not thought about it so much in the way of managing emotions, but the activities that we do, the ones that work, it has the elements of that in. It's not as cognitively thought and put into lesson plans. And one of the things that I really learned from Mr. Rogers is to take that into account and, you know, factor that in. And if you can make it a positive emotional experience along with being able to learn, it makes learning easier. Sorry, I could keep going on. Michelle Thomas, Suggestopedia, creating a comfortable, relaxed atmosphere, emotional control, learn by teaching, giving the students pointers, functional language for them to get through teaching, for them to build their confidence. You know, he literally mentions Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Yeah, it's ingrained whether we like to, whether we like to mention it or not. And I think being more cognizant with that in your lesson plans is only going to, you know, make your lessons richer.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I agree.
If you like this episode of Teaching Masters and you want to see more, you know, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Let us know what you think about Mr. Rogers. Would you like to see us delve more into Mr. Rogers and kind of go even deeper? Then leave a comment.
Teachers are very, very important in a child's life. Well, in anybody's life. You know, I think about Jesus being called a teacher. Rabboni means teacher. And it's such a lofty profession. Could be, should be, is that of teacher. Imagine giving what you have learned to somebody else. There have been people who have given me the compliment of being a teacher, and I take that as a very big compliment.
If you're looking for more information from myself, you can go to teamteacherchina.com. We've got a whole bunch of materials, PowerPoints that you can use instantly in the classroom. We've got a Team Teacher China YouTube channel where we have videos teaching you how to use those materials. Team Teacher English, where we put those materials into a video form for self-study. And Team Teacher Baby, where I take my experience as a teacher and put that into parenting.
And go to youtube.com/Professor Rich to see some English teaching. You can catch me weekly live streams on Oxford Online English YouTube channel. Oh, and also you can do a YouTube search for POG Space UK, and you would get my alpha version of my new gaming channel, which actually just have some trial content on there at the moment. You can email us here at eltunderthecovers@gmail.com if you have anything you'd like to contribute to the show.
Smash that like button, share and subscribe.
And watch 100% of the video and don't click off. Thank you.
Bye.
Are we finished?
Yeah.
Because this is what I always play at the end of any studio day.